With a 20-year reputation for clean business, Matt Glynn at Code Property Group is the first choice for real estate on the Sunshine Coast and surrounding areas. I've known Matt for a very long time from a personal level and professional level, and he is an excellent real estate agent. He's professional, he holds a high level of integrity, he presents incredibly well, and has a huge amount of knowledge when it comes to the real estate industry. So if you are in the market to buy, sell, or simply get a valuation and find out more about your current property, then give Matt a call on 0404 315 066 or matt.glynn, GLYNN at codepg.com. You won't be disappointed. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paul's Body Engineering Podcast. I'm running solo this week and I've been inspired by a number of new clients of mine that have asked very similar questions in relation to their start. And I thought, you know what? There's probably an opportunity here to get this message out to the wider audience. And I thought, what better way to do that than my podcast? I know it gets a lot of listens. And, I thought that there could be some really good educational content in what I was chatting to with my clients about. So I'm going to get into it. But, it won't be a lengthy discussion. It won't be your typical sort of 45 minute to an hour podcast. This one will probably only be, I'm going to guess 10, 15 minutes. But the point is, it's around consistency. Now, this word gets thrown around so much. But what does that actually mean? I don't think a lot of us actually understand what consistency looks like. And I want to try and break that down for you today, because consistency is what is going to get you your results. It's not perfection. It's not being perfect every single day. It's not being 100% every single day. It's consistency over time. It's almost a maths equation, really, whereby we need to have time, we need to be patient, and we need to be consistent over that time. And, we often, unfortunately, there is an underlying stigma whereby we're just sort of expecting immediate results. And when we don't get immediate results, we kick stones, we get disheartened, we chuck the shits. And more often than not, and I've seen this firsthand, people quit. No matter what it is, I'm talking anything, not just health and fitness. And people will quit because they are frustrated, because they realise it's too hard, or it's too challenging, or it's too difficult to maintain, when in point of fact it isn't. It's just that you're frustrated at the initial result because there hasn't been a change. Now, if I focus in on weight loss as a primary sort of example in this situation, I've had a number of clients recently, newer clients that are only a couple of weeks into their journey, and they haven't really had too much of a result and they're obviously focusing a lot of their energy on the scales. Now, even though I do talk about all the different variables at play here and all the different means of measuring progress, when people come from a history of focusing on the scales, it's hard to undo in a couple of weeks. So we've got to give them some patience and some time there. But when they've had a really good week in terms of following the plan, they've been, really diligent with their food, they've trained really well, they've done steps, they've eaten, they've drunk water, they've gotten good night's sleep, and the scales haven't moved. And, their immediate response is, oh man, well, why am I bothering? Well, why do I need to do this? What, I'm so disheartened. What's going on? I don't understand. But what we've got to then, as a coach, deliver to them in an educational but also empathetic way is that this process takes time. If you've spent, the last 5 to 10 years with a very inconsistent calorie intake, and let's face it, most people have, if they don't have the education around nutrition, some days are really high, some days are really low, some days you haven't eaten until 11 a.m, some days you have a massive dinner, some days you go out and eat on the weekends, and it's really inconsistent. That can't be undone in a week. That can't be undone in 2 weeks. Your body has actually adapted to that lifestyle. So we have to give it time to adjust and adapt and get used to a steady, caloric intake. And when it does, then we can obviously make some significant change in terms of weight loss or physique change, body recomposition, you name it. But it takes time. Some people, they might get an immediate result, and that's great, because at the end of the day, this process is very individual based. What works for one person doesn't work for the other. What works for people that you've seen on social media doesn't work for you. And that's because your history is different, your intake is different, your dietary requirements are different, your energy availability is different. There's so many factors here that need to be considered. And if we want to do this right, and that's the key thing here, you've got to do it right. You can't be in it for the short term where you think, all right, after 6 weeks, I should have dropped 10 kilos and then I'm happy to go on my way. No. It doesn't work like that. After 6 weeks, if you drop 10 kilos, I'm going to put money, it's $1 in terms of odds in my favor that you'll put the majority of that weight back on in the next 6 weeks, because you haven't been educated on how to manage that situation. So the principal means of what I do is it's a slow process. We allow the body to adapt to a caloric intake over time. And when we do get the weight off, and it might be 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, who knows, you will be able to sustain that. You will be able to live a healthier life because you've done the work. And plenty of people have done it. They've walked the line and they've done it. And I've got recent examples of that many people are aware of based on obviously, social media and stuff. But for those that are new, and this is anybody, I'm not talking about my clients, I'm talking about anybody, you've got to give it the time. It needs the time. It needs the patience. It needs the consistency. And consistency comes in many different forms. Okay, as I said at the top, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 100% compliant every single day. If that is really, really challenging for you and really hard to sustain, then don't do it. But if let's look at a 7-day week as a primary example here, okay? So say Monday, you're 90% consistent. Tuesday, you're 85% consistent. Wednesday, you drop down to 70%. Thursday, you're back up to 90. Friday, you're at 95 because you've had a really good week. Saturday, you lose a little bit of compliance and you drop to 80. And Sunday, let's say you're at 85. If we worked out that average off the top of my head without obviously calculating it, it's probably around 85%. Who wouldn't want to be consistent for 85% of the time? That's 8.5 out of 10 every single day for the rest of their lives. You're going to get results off 8.5 out of 10. You really will. So you can see where consistency lies. It's about being consistent over a longer period of time, where if we graphed it, we would see consistency in that graph. It's not about, trying to be 99.99% perfect, because most people can't adhere to that. Most people don't have the discipline to adhere to that. And there should be no expectation that you have to adhere to that level. But if you're really, really consistent over a lengthy period of time, you will get results. And you know what? If you get to a point where the results are starting to slow down and you've been consistent for a period and you have that conversation with your coach and you go, you know what, I want to tighten things up a little bit more. I really want to knuckle down and get a few more kilos off, but I understand that that's going to require me to be more disciplined. Then great, let's do that. Let's have that discussion and let's work out a plan and a strategy to make that work. But for the newbies that don't have that nutritional literacy or that education behind them, and they're just starting out, they're trying to find their feet, they're not too sure how this is going to play out. As long as you follow the plan that's put in place in front of you, as long as you do the very best you can in terms of your available time and you commit and you put yourself first and you put lots of energy into it, that's all that should be expected of you. And then, when you do regular check-ins and regular feedback and things like that, well, if there's subtle improvements that can be made, they'll be pointed out and they'll be identified. And you go, you know what, I can do that. I can fit that in. I can make that improvement over the coming weeks, because you're not going from 0 to 100. You're probably going from 75 to 80. And then the next week it might be 80 to 85. And then 85 to 90. And all of a sudden, each week, as you get more confidence in the space and you develop more momentum, you've got a bit of flow state going on where things are just aligned and running really, really smoothly, you'll be able to make better improvements. And that is consistency at the end of the day. And that's what we need. If you can generate consistency in everything you do, you will be successful. There's no two ways about it. You will be successful. And this goes across everything, not just health and fitness. If you want to dominate in business, be consistent. If you want to dominate in sales, I have this conversation with one of my clients all the time about, he works in real estate, and he always references consistency for him because he's really successful, been in it for over 20 years, and it's because of the consistency of his week in terms of his marketing, his calls, his listings, his networking, all these things. And it goes to everybody for everything. The more consistent you are with something, the more you will get the results. And unfortunately, we live in a society and a time in our lives where we don't have patience. We want immediate gratification. We want immediate response. And I think social media has a lot to blame for that. You know, you put a post up and you're checking 5 minutes later if you've got any likes. You're looking for instant gratification. You know, those sorts of things can change the way we think, can change our mindset. They can effectively impact evolution. So it's really important that we take a step back when it's our personal health and fitness and go, okay, I've been told that I need to be patient. I've been told that this will be a slow process. I need to buy into that process. I need to embrace it. I need to understand. And look, if you've got questions, ask questions. The more information you've got at your disposal, the more knowledge you have. The more knowledge you've got, the more confidence you have in the process and how you're going to move forward. If you don't have any information, well, you're going to sort of, you know, tread water a little bit. But if you ask the appropriate questions, and I'm certain you'll get definitive and comprehensive answers, that will put you in a much stronger position moving forward. You will have a greater understanding of what's required from you, what your coach is doing, the strategy, the process, and guess what? You won't have to worry about it. And the less you worry, the more energy and focus you can put into what you're doing. So that is consistency in a nutshell. You know, what are we now? 11, just under 12 minutes. But that is consistency, and that can be applied to everything. The body is such a smart mechanism. It adapts to anything that is put to it over and over and over and over again. I'll use rugby league as a prime example. Okay, I love rugby league. It's my favourite sport to watch. I've been supporting it since I was a little kid. And the individuals that play it at the highest level, they often refer to their training as reps, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, if you've watched it on the news and they say, oh, we've got to get so many reps in. What they're referring to is a certain play or a certain movement or a certain pass or a certain run that they have to do so many times over and over and over and over and over again until it is ingrained within them. And then when it's called on game day, they just switch into automation. They know exactly where they need to be. They know exactly what they need to do. And it's because they've done probably thousands of reps prior to it. Your health and fitness journey is exactly the same. The more you do something, the more accustomed it is to you, the more familiar you are with it, and the more opportunity you've got to keep it going. But throwing in the towel, kicking stones early on is not going to get you anywhere, and that's why people give up really quickly. And it's probably why, for most part, one, we've got an obesity epidemic in this country, and two, everyone's looking to get on Ozempic because they want a quick fix, when in point of fact it isn't. And that's just a little jab at that drug because I really don't like it. But truth be told, if you stick to your guns, if you get good advice, if you get good direction and the appropriate support, you can achieve anything. You really can. So I'll finish up there. Very quick podcast today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that message got across to everybody and was clear. It was a topic that came up several times this week, and I thought, you know what, there's a good opportunity for me to share it to the broader audience because I'm sure many other people have asked the question. Many other people have given up on something when they could have potentially seen it through simply because they just needed to be more patient, have more time into it, invest more time into it, and just stick to their guns and know that what they're doing is going to work because they've seen it firsthand themselves through other people. So thank you once again. Really appreciate your time. If you're interested in any of my coaching services, please jump on my website, paulsbodyengineering.com, or alternatively, my Instagram page has all my information, or you can simply send me a DM and I'm happy to send you further coaching information. Outside of that, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please screenshot and share it. Send it to someone who you may think need it. Alternatively, put it on your stories. Tag myself at Paul's Body Engineering. But for now, as I say to every client, every single day, have a great day. Experience the difference with Matt Glynn at Code Property Group. With a 20-year reputation of a clean business, Matt is your guy when it comes to all things real estate. Make sure you give him a call now on 0404 315 066.